Look at the sheer scale of global agriculture today. We operate massive automated machinery that pull millions of tons of food from the earth, seemingly bypassing biological limits to feed the planet. We apply that same mechanical precision to our own bodies. In operating rooms worldwide, multi-armed surgical robots extend human life and maintain health with a level of accuracy that flesh and blood hands could never achieve. And to keep all of this moving, we rely on precision aerospace engineering. These highly polished turbine blades run for thousands of hours under extreme stress, maintaining the logistics networks that connect continents. But all of these systems share a quiet, unavoidable physical constraint. The machines harvesting the grain, the scalpels in the robotic arms, and the engines in the aircraft are constructed from metal. Left untreated, that metal is guaranteed to rapidly corrode and fail. We operate under the assumption that our civilization is a weightless, wireless, digital empire. In reality, we are running outdated psychological software on a finite planet, and our entire modern apparatus is physically anchored to the dirt. The stainless steel and superalloys holding up that modern world rely entirely on one specific element to survive the elements: chromium. There is no synthetic alternative. As this 2026 United States Geological Survey outlines, 95% of the world's chromium resources are geographically concentrated in just two regions, Kazakhstan and Southern Africa. Scrolling further down the page reveals the true choke point. South Africa alone sits on roughly 72% of global chrome ore resources. No nation on Earth possesses the financial or military power to simply route around this fact. Without consistent access to this specific geography, modern technological capacity stalls out. The sprawling mines of South Africa represent the primary physical dependency of modern technology. Control over this dirt determines whether global industry has the physical capacity to exist. Extracting that chromium is exceptionally difficult. These tunnels sit thousands of meters underground, deep below the natural water table, creating a highly hostile physical environment. To prevent the shafts from rapidly filling with groundwater, massive industrial pumps must operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They are civilization's dead man switch, a permanent, fragile barrier against the water. The infrastructure holding that water back is currently buckling. Heavily armed, organized illegal mining syndicates, known as zama-zamas, are actively operating across these sites, dismantling the grid for their own survival. They strip the thick copper cables that power the massive water pumps to secure an immediate payout. If a primary substation is stripped and the power grid drops, those pumps stop moving. The deep shafts flood almost instantly, and rehabilitating them requires years of work and billions of dollars. A person cutting a cable to feed themselves doesn't need to understand global economics, but that single, desperate act crashes the global supply chain, causing assembly lines for Western tractors and medical equipment to physically grind to a halt. The immediate reflex of global superpowers like the US and China is to try and lock this region down by militarizing the rail lines and blanketing the mines in AI-enabled mass surveillance. The geography makes this mathematically impossible. The operations span thousands of miles of flat, exposed remote terrain, leaving power lines and pumping stations entirely out in the open. You cannot put a digital dome over it. As this analysis details, you cannot enforce order when human biology takes over. The physical drive to survive easily overrides fear of unguarded tech. Looking closely at the conclusion here, the logic is undeniable. The crowbar always wins against the camera if the person holding the crowbar is starving. Desperate people will simply blind the lenses or strip the surveillance hardware for parts. Deploying a high-tech digital fortress over a population desperate for basic survival is a fatal geopolitical miscalculation. Global powers will likely burn through trillions of dollars attempting to secure this infrastructure by force. But as the cost of constant surveillance rises against the unrelenting pressure of local sabotage, the strategy of containment becomes physically and economically unsustainable. The logistical truth is that the only way to physically secure a sprawling infrastructure network is from the inside out. A perimeter defense is too easily breached. Security is achieved exclusively when surrounding communities are integrated into the network, removing any incentive to dismantle it. The pragmatic path forward is to actively maintain the delicate physical network that keeps civilization running, rather than endlessly attempting to conquer it. That requires creating a localized system of abundance. It means making massive global investments directly into southern Africa, building local processing plants, stabilizing the power grids, and providing high-paying industrial jobs. When local communities hold the wealth generated by the mines, their behavior shifts. They transform into a self-sustaining security apparatus, protecting the power lines and pumps because the infrastructure is directly tied to their own prosperity. We can no longer rely on the threat of invisible judges or outdated psychology to enforce global cooperation. The Earth has forced our hand. It created an absolute, unhackable physical dependency, where a failure at the deep shaft pumps in Africa directly results in a failure inside hospitals everywhere else. A failure at the deep shaft mines in Africa eventually stops the tractors and ventilators everywhere else. Investing in local stability is the most ruthless, cost-effective security strategy available for modern civilization.